1990 could be called a year of activism in the Twin Ports.
How can we do either one of those without everyone having access to health care?
Across the Northland, people demonstrated and mobilized to help advance those causes which they felt were deserving of attention. One of those causes this year was the plight of the homeless.
You betcha. Move for 20.
Most recently, Wisconsin State Assembly Representative Frank Boyle and Superior chiropractor John Lang braved 13-degree below temperatures in cardboard boxes one night to raise money for the Solid Rock Missions Building Fund. More than $4,000 was raised as a result of that effort. In early December, students from the College of St. Scholastica left the safety and comfort of their dorm rooms during one of the coldest nights of the year to awaken the Northland's conscience.
You know, to make other people realize that there is this kind of thing going on everywhere, that they should be concerned about it and that they shouldn't just walk by and ignore it because it is a problem, and I think people should realize that.
And the Northland apparently is standing up and taking notice of these efforts. Shelter representatives say efforts like these give a great boost to their cause.
I think it makes the public more aware of the really need that there is. People don't really realize that there are people that actually sleep out. Many of them do it by choice, but the majority are because of need. I mean, there just isn't enough housing to house them, and especially families.
And even though these efforts are good, more help is still needed by way of making more housing available for families of 2 or more.
What you're turning away is couples and families, and they're kind of bunching up with other families, which puts real strain on them. I see that the biggest need.
And it is on the basis of this need, shelter representatives say, they will capitalize on the Northland's awakened conscience and concentrate their efforts on housing for family units in 1991. In Duluth, Dave Marshall, News 6.
I'd usually get up about 7 o'clock and load up the truck and be out by 8 and fish till about 6 o'clock. Spend all day out here with a couple friends or my dad, and hopefully catch some walleyes.
When Tom Pfister has a day off during the winter, you can usually find him out ice fishing.
What you'd almost call a high, because you get out in the adrenaline to catch a nice fish and turn it loose. Most people that come out and catch a 5-pound walleye are going to put it on their stringer or put it in a cooler, but it's really nice to turn that big fish loose so you can catch them another day.
But like any angler, Tom likes to take home his limit. He reeled in his first fish around the age of 3 with a little help from his dad, and the 22-year-old's been hooked on fishing ever since.
You got me started like when I was out of the car seat and out in the boat pulling them in.
Tom's tackle box contains only a small portion from his collection of jigs and lures, but he's tried them all, hoping to land that big walleye through that small hole in the ice.
The walleyes are generally going to hold on those rock piles until they're spooked off with the vehicle traffic. But as we know, all the ice houses are right off of shore. There's nobody that always ventures out into the lake. So the guys that do venture out are going to have more success and better luck.
So if you're out fishing this winter and see a house alone in the ice, it might be Tom Pfister catching another limit of tasty walleye fillets. On Fish Lake, Mike Birkland, News 6.
4 minutes.
All the way from Minnesota. Big closet. When we had the 3 children at home, we had one bathroom.
It was moving day for Minnesota's newest senator. And as he settled into his home away from home, one of the realities of life in the nation's capital began to hit home.
Our house in Northfield was $17,500. We paid $125 a month on the $113 a month in mortgage. This is $1,200 a month, which is considered cheap.
But there was little time to despair over the cost of living. The colorful and outspoken college professor turned politician is preoccupied with the crisis in the Gulf. And a day before his inauguration, he was already calling on fellow senators to discuss possible courses of action.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't called Jesse Helms. I mean, there are limits. There are limits here, you know.
By some accounts, he will be the most liberal man in the Senate. And as he bangs the anti-war drum loudly, inauguration is nothing but an afterthought. In keeping with that theme, Wellstone and his wife Sheila toured the Vietnam War Memorial. The senator-elect warning against the consequences of an undeclared war.
It's getting very late. But it can't be too late. There's always a time to die. What's the hurry? It can't be too late to listen to people.
Who makes the decision to go to war and who makes the sacrifice? That is Wellstone's question. The senator-elect says the vast majority of the people in this country have not been heard. And he's urging his counterparts in Congress to enter into a full session to debate the use of force in the Gulf. Brad Woodard for News 6, Washington.
Skating yesterday at a local rink, and it gets kind of cold, and so we decided to come down here today so he could stay out a little bit longer on the ice.
It's hard to imagine at one point downtown Superior was the business and economic hub of the city. Today it sits with its stunning architecture as a reminder of its former glory. But it has unquestionably lost its hold on the majority of shoppers who've abandoned the dullness of this place for the glitz and glamour of area malls. But downtown Superior is fighting back.
Send a survey out, and I don't know how they picked it.
Mary Morgan and Joseph Till are officers in the Business Improvement District of Superior, or BID. It's a statutory entity created by the Wisconsin legislature. It's designed in part to help revitalize the downtown area and make it more attractive to shoppers.
Persons in our community gave us the message that they thought downtown was dirty and ugly and that the storefronts needed improvement, as well as some positive things like they considered it a safe downtown and that parking was not a problem. So the board has really aimed heavy duty at addressing those image issues.
Today, BID announced a major plan to help address the problem of image. It's called the Storefront Renovation Plan, a financial incentive to downtown property owners who make improvements to their businesses. The plan makes grants available at 20% of the total cost of the improvements for any number of pre-specified criteria. Subject to approval by the BID board, these improvements must be made by the end of October. BID board members say it's part of an overall master plan which will see the downtown area blossoming in the near future.
Downtown is changing a little bit in its geography. The major buildings and major sites are shifting a little bit, but But it's all the kind of thing that's improving our image, and we want to do whatever we can to spur that enthusiasm.
BID predicts it's projects like this one which can spur a revival of sorts for the area. Business owners are quite excited about the new incentive program and say the benefits are tremendous. Not only are they able to make much needed capital improvements, but they're able to reestablish downtown's legacy as a major financial district. Reporting from downtown Superior, Dave Marshall, News 6.
As you can see, it's really coming along quite well. We got temporary offices set up across the alley, so we, as far as the office functions, we are back in business. But as far as any type of fabricating, we might be down for a couple days, but we're rallying right now to get everything up and running.
When the kids at Barnum Elementary School run out of paper or pencils, they run straight to the Emergency Supply Company, a school store for kids, run by kids.
Well, after Christmas on most years, I find the students borrowing paper, borrowing pencils, looking for erasers, so I decided we'd find a way to solve the problem.
Tim Schilling's third grade class not only runs the store, they're part owners as well. In order to raise capital to open the store, students at Barnum Elementary had the option of purchasing $1 stock certificates. The kids take care of the day-to-day operations, and they're finding a big need for their service.
If they run out of pencils and they ask their mom for money, they don't have to go to the store and get pencils. They can just come to school and get some pencils.
The store is open twice a day, but it's much more than just making change. In addition to selling erasers and glue, the kids are learning valuable marketing and sales skills as well. The store makes a couple of dollars a day. At the end of the year, the students hope to use the money they've made to buy something nice for the school. In Barnum, Tony Shockley, News 6.
Ray Hahn grew up during the Depression of the 1930s. Today, he's the epitome of a self-made man.
There were people told me that would never make it going into manufacturing. But also in 1958, people told me I couldn't haul round logs 500 miles, and I did. So it's always been a challenge to me to do something somebody told me I couldn't do.
The former logger modernized the industry with the invention of the Hahn harvester more than 20 years ago. He sold more than 400 units since opening his business in 1973. Last month, he sold his stock in the company and retired as president, but the business still belongs to the family.
I never looked forward to quit working. Probably if I didn't have a family to take over, I would have stayed in there till you drop dead. But in all good business practice, you better get out while you're still alive.
Over his 68 years, Ray's seen technology take over, but it hasn't passed him by. Computers now design in a day what used to take him a month. With his retirement, logging's losing a part of its past, but the name will still be around in the industry's future.
There's no one man accomplishes what I accomplish. It takes a group of people. Everything from your family to the fellows that put them together. And I'm a strong believer in that.
In Two Harbors, Mike Birkland, News 6.
You go out to the parking lot. unsure if it was the ship's bell, the main ship's bell, or the bell from broken. Right now,
the bell is an example of the numerous artifacts and as part of the shipwrecks that are in Lake Superior. And although this bell is now above the lake, it provides you a glimpse of what's underneath the water that should be left.
and that's inside the harbor. That's field with the bell was found off this front end.
So it was, huh? Now, how did it hit back over
Yeah,
here?
it came in around, the Hesper was pulling it in. You go.
Carleton County garbage haulers are not only fighting increased fuel costs and landfill rates, but also a drop in service. More rural residents are disposing of their garbage themselves due to the passed-on rate increases. The haulers want the Carleton County Board to make garbage service mandatory.
It's a problem, and it's going to be more and more of a problem with the rate increase coming January 1st. Rates are going from $58 a ton up to $70 a ton. You're going to see a lot more of it. We had a 10% decrease in our business in Carleton County last year, and we're afraid we're going to see a big enough decrease where we might not be able to operate in Carleton County.
Thompson Spirit Valley Disposal lost nearly 100 customers last year, but board members hear the public complaining about how after they recycle, there's not much garbage left to collect. And why should people be forced to pay someone to pick up what little garbage they do have instead of getting rid of it themselves?
We want to come out every week. We don't have enough left after we recycle. We don't have anything left to pick up.
The problem is some people are illegally disposing of their garbage to avoid pickup, either by burning it or burying it. Lake County unsuccessfully tried mandatory garbage service last year, and Carleton County board members are afraid they would have little better success.
Raise your right hand. I will administer the oath of office. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic? That you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same? That you take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion? And that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter. So help you God. I do. Congratulations.
I'd like to see it bone chicken, and I'd like to see it possibly make pizza rolls and then shipped into Duluth for packing, because there's a certain absorption that I can do with the Elliott plant, and I've got to plan ahead so that I don't find myself working myself out of the capacity there.
Just listening to you talk, it certainly sounds like success is coming easy on this third try.
Well, no, it hasn't been easy. It's been, number one, I have a credibility in the food trade. I'm using that. Number two, I go out there, with all due respect to your television station that survives on advertising. In the national media, I'd say no advertising, no couponing. In other words, everything into the product, everything into the value of the price, and then promoting it very strongly through the supermarkets.
How could
It's just one of those things. We went through vandalism here 3 or 4 times. I missed it, and I didn't luck out on this one.
That belongs there.
That's how we got in. Don't touch it. The cops are coming. They want pictures. How about your?
You got a call. Yeah.
Building is just going to be, what, torn down? Why tear it down? Let it be of use to people.
3 years ago today, the Lincoln Hotel in downtown Duluth was closed. 100 people were forced to find other places to live. The Duluth Affordable Housing Committee doesn't want Northlanders to forget there are people out there without a place to call home. For one reason or another, there are an estimated 600 people living on the edge of being homeless or actually without shelter at any given time in Duluth.
There's a clear need for housing in Duluth, and there's a building that can be readily adapted to that need, and really it seems that all that's lacking is the will to do it on the part of the city and the people that have the power to do so.
Though the committee says the city has been cooperative in trying to help ease the shortage, the problem is still severe. They say they need the public to get involved.
There's so many empty units that are sitting there not being used, and there is so much need for housing right now that I think the community needs to put pressure on, on landlords or absentee landlords, the city, county, whoever, to get these buildings open and used.
We're here just to remind people that the Lincoln could be a great place, a great opportunity to provide people with safe, decent, affordable housing. But unfortunately, due to the owners and due to not enough money really to get this project rolling, the building's still sitting empty.
Negotiations have stalemated in the quest to acquire the Lincoln Hotel and turn it back into low-income housing units. The committee has made an offer of about $100,000 plus another $100,000 in owed back taxes. After that, it would cost about $1 million to rehabilitate it. At this point, however, that plan is no more than a dream, as the owner of the building stands firm at the asking price of $750,000. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
Imagine looking out your window at work and seeing this.
We're at the nursing station, and one of the nurses happened to look out through this window here and saw a fireball pass across the window. She just saw a blaze of light and a flaming ball go past the window. She alerted us. We all ran to the window, and we were looking out, and what we saw was what looked like a bonfire. It was an orangish light out there past the Superior, or the Duluth entry.
The employees tracked the drifting fiery object for another 30 minutes before losing sight of it. The Coast Guard is investigating, but an initial investigation after the sighting has turned up nothing. The Coast Guard believes the object may have been part of a broken-up satellite, but that's not necessarily the opinion others are going by. UMD astronomer Glenn Langhorst says if the object were a piece of satellite or even a meteor, it would have sunk immediately. Langhorst says he's intrigued by the object's behavior once it hit the water.
So what is so puzzling is that it floated for a long time. And I think if it was something natural, it would have disappeared and not remained visible for so long. So maybe it is a piece of man-made, or maybe some other beings manufacture it. Who knows?
The Coast Guard is waiting to see if any debris washes ashore, but chances are the strange sighting may remain just another of the mysteries of Lake Superior. In Duluth, Tony Shockley, News 6.
Submitted the budget. We'll probably be getting that at the end of January or first part of February.
This is a partisan game, and certainly the press likes to report about our differences, but is a fair and balanced one.
I plan to have a open door policy to the legislators and the members of our caucus. I want to include all of our members in the budget making decisions. We've all been elected by the people of the state of Wisconsin, and I want to make sure that the citizens of the state of Wisconsin who are paying the bills for our government, their voices are heard and their needs are met. The governor, of course, has not submitted the budget. We'll probably be getting that at the end of January or first part of February. And until then, we don't know exactly what the initiatives will be. It's
It was almost like magic. I'll show you some magic. You make your color up. But not just yet. Like the moon, Mickey. I'll always remember that night, Donald.
Do I have lipstick? Scandal?
A jubilant Paul Wellstone just moments before his swearing in. He hasn't even been in office a day, and already Wellstone is one of the best-known faces in the Senate. Touted as the most liberal man in the Senate, Wellstone's notoriety of late has centered around his position on the Gulf.
There's always a time to die. What's the hurry? It can't be too late to listen to people.
Wellstone came under fire for staging a press conference at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial the day before his inauguration, where he issued a plea against military action in the Gulf. The head of one national veterans group called it highly inappropriate.
This morning you made the newspaper, the Washington Post, concerning the appearance at the memorial, which is considered by some controversial and perhaps out of taste. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I mean, I think it was the right thing to do. To go. Sheila and I wanted to go. I mean, you didn't expect all the national media to be there. They were, and then to move away from the memorial to the woods where other people have held press conferences, given the fact that TV and others were there, and to say what I said, which is that what question this really brings to the forefront is who exactly decides to go to war and who's asked to sacrifice.
Wellstone has maintained from the beginning that he would speak his mind and not tread lightly in Washington.
I'll bet anything I've got that'll be worked out this afternoon, and then everybody.
Former Vice President Mondale, Wellstone's escort for the inauguration, says he doesn't want Wellstone to change, but he offered Minnesota's newest senator a few words of advice.
In no sense should he remain silent when he wishes to speak out. No way, I don't want to be misunderstood. But this is a difficult, complex job. Building influence and followership and mastering those issues takes time. And it is that approach that I would recommend to him.
But that advice didn't keep Wellstone from entering into a mini debate with Vice President Dan Quayle less than an hour after his swearing in. When Wellstone presented Quayle with a tape recording from a town meeting in Marshall to demonstrate opposition there to military action in the Gulf, he was promptly told in such situations it's appropriate to follow the president's lead. Brad Woodard for News 6, Washington.
No, I'm really not pleased. In fact, any one of the others would have been perfectly okay with me. This has absolutely nothing to do with partisan politics. I just have had experience with Sando, and none of it has ever been pleasant.
John Ongaro, the St. Louis County lobbyist, will be in St. Paul this evening. He has an extremely tough chore ahead of him. With the state facing a nearly $2 billion shortfall, Ongaro will work hard to try and minimize the amount of damage expected through possible cuts in state aid.
We feel that since a lot of what county government does is on a more statewide basis, that it is more proper for the state income tax and state sales tax to be paying for many of our programs versus higher property taxes instead to be paying for those programs.
Earl says the county could see a minimum loss of $735,000 to a maximum of $4.5 million in the property tax relief area alone. He says this figure does not even include a myriad of other aids the county receives, which could mean almost doubling the loss. Ongaro says one option will be to ask the state for flexibility in mandates if the state insists on making cuts.
One option would be for the legislature to take off a lot of the mandates that are placed on us, and that would give us more flexibility to make more broad cuts rather than focusing in on just a small area of county government whenever we have to make cuts.
If the legislature moves as expected, Ongaro sees the county being forced to make some cuts in the middle of fiscal year 1991. He says it will mean some very tough decisions for the county board. Ungaro says he is confident that the Northeast Minnesota legislative delegation will help to minimize the damage. He says especially now without a governor from this area, the county more than ever will rely on their help. In Duluth, Patty Baker, News 6.
Lloyd Gilbertson is proud to call this dog camp home. But lunch breaks don't last long when you're training, cleaning, and caring for a 70-dog kennel. It's a full-time job with very little pay, but Lloyd and his handler, Brian Gillett, do it for one reason. They love driving sled dogs.
You give up a lot. That's the sacrifice part. You gain a lot. I think what I gain is that every time I run these dogs, I get some energy out of them. And if you aren't running them, that becomes real defeating. If you're running them, ooh, you get this surge of energy from these wonderful creatures, and we've been running them a lot.
Lloyd made the decision to go into mushing full-time last spring, but it hasn't been easy. You have to live without a few of life's luxuries when you go into racing full-time.
Okay, let's get this harness on you. All right. Good dog, Sony.
Brian's handling for Lloyd after answering an ad in Musher magazine last spring. Like Lloyd, he's not making any money, but he's not losing any either.
You know, we get up, start straight off on dogs, and then run dogs, and come back and feed dogs, and maybe after, I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock, you might get to eat something yourself.
He's basically working for room and board, a little bit of spending money when we have it. Hopefully that'll get better as we go along. I couldn't be here without the work he's doing.
For now, Lloyd's just hoping to place high in this year's races, especially the Bear Grease. And maybe someday he'll actually make money at mushing.
I showed you the quote from Ray Bradbury, you jump off cliffs, build your wings on the way down. So we've made that commitment. We're doing a professional job and doing it on a shoestring budget. We'll either get the sponsorship help that we need to put together that professional dog team and help out there, or we won't, and then we can't do it anymore.
On the North Shore Trail, Mike Birkland, News 6.
But the legislators, I think, are well paid, if not overpaid, and I do think we spend too much time being in the legislature. I think we've got the salary too high. It's become too much of an encouragement for too many people to go. I think it should be reduced.
That assumes that he'll be governor in 1991.
And if you were to cut back all the salary increases for judges, for the governor, for executive branch, all the people who that he's referring to, it probably is $500,000 at the most. I'm guessing. We've got $1 billion problem. This is less than $1 billion. It's just rhetoric and it's phony. And I'm disappointed that a guy that I've worked with in the legislature, I've worked with him for 20 years, is starting off by trying to play those political games just to be popular.
Need to remove all the decorations and any metal or wire that's attached to the tree. We'd like them to remove the tree bags if they bag up their tree in a tree bag, to take that off when they drop the tree off.
For Julie and her two daughters, this is the house of their dreams. And for more and more Northlanders, houses like these could be a more accessible reality in the near future. That's because on Monday, the Bank of America of San Francisco lowered its prime rate, or the rate it charges its major corporate customers, from 10% to 9.5%, sparing the top $3 billion banks to do likewise. Traditionally, when one of the 20 larger banks in the country lowers its prime rate, there is a trickle-down effect, which is felt in many smaller institutions and eventually affects other areas of the financial market. Bank representatives say it's not uncommon as a general rule for customers to enjoy the spill-off of the high finance maneuvers.
Consumer rates, borrowing for boats, for vacations, for cars, should soften, all other things being equal, over a period of time. It doesn't mean the same day that the prime rate might drop, but it would tend to signal a general lessening of rates throughout the country, throughout the different types of credit that are available.
And as the market becomes much softer, the big-ticket items like homes and cars become easier to acquire for those who perhaps could not afford them at a higher interest rate.
What it means is that more people are going to be able to get into housing than would normally happen if interest rates start to go up and the prime rates start to go up in that relationship.
Financial analysts say they're not certain when or if the Northland will feel the effects of the lower prime rate, but based on historical precedents, it could happen and could happen pretty quickly. Reporting from Duluth, Dave Marshall, News 6.
Coated with a layer of frosty ice, the Edgar B. Spear is now docked in Duluth for the long winter. For the past couple of years, the Duluth port has attracted ships back here for maintenance during the winter after the port realigned its rates. The move helped to provide lots of employment. It also helped to pump an estimated $2 million into the local economy. But this was all threatened recently until a state law was changed to exempt ships from a sales tax while in the port.
The ship owners had made it very clear that if they were forced to pay a sales tax here and not anywhere else, they simply wouldn't winter here any longer. So with the legislative change, by August of this year, all the berths were already committed on the Duluth side of the harbor, which was very gratifying.
Leonard Schultz is also grateful. He is now working during the winter months, as he is one of over 100 people who find employment repairing the wintering ships. He says it definitely helps to pay the bills.
They had an opening, and a friend of mine kind of steered me toward them. I took a physical, and they hired me on, and I've been a seasonal worker for them ever since.
There are now 11 ships docked in this area for the winter, and 3 more are soon scheduled to arrive. Duluth port officials are optimistic now that ships will continue to winter here for years to come. In Duluth, Patty Baker, News 6.
The first leg of the Sawtooth Challenge series begins this weekend with the Empire 130 dog sled race in Solon Springs. The race is growing as fast as the sport itself. Today, volunteers were making final preparations for tomorrow morning's 9 o'clock start.
We've had it for 3 years, and it's grown progressively every year since. We really enjoy working with it.
Last year, the trail between Solon Springs and Amnicon Lake was covered with grassy patches because of a lack of snow, but mushers say that won't be a problem this year.
It's going to be a real fast, hard-packed trail, and there's just enough snow to make it real nice.
More than 60 teams are entered in this year's race, doubling the field from just 2 years ago. And as the popularity of mushing continues to rise, so do middle-distance races like the Empire 130.
It isn't quite the challenge as the 500 or the Iditarod, you know, so yeah, but they are popular because they're not real time consuming, but yet you're giving your dogs a challenge. and yourself.
Well, next year we're going to have a big, what should we say, sugar daddy that'll cover us. We hope to get a national sponsor that'll put up a lot of money up front.
In Solon Springs, Mike Birkland, News 6.
I could suspect that redistricting usually is working. We're going to lose a senator, any representative or more. We don't know yet. That's going to take a lot of my time.
District 57A, the Honorable James.
While Duluth still faces a critical battle with aging school buildings and not...
Past legislative commitments on spending have gotten Minnesota into big problems with its state checkbook. If spending continues at its present rate, the state will fall nearly $200 million into the hole by July 1st. Take the same rate of spending 2 years beyond that, and the figure grows to a whopping $1 billion.
Well, the first and number one issue, of course, is budget.
Well, obviously it's going to be money, and it's too bad that money has to be the overriding concern.
Budget, the budget, and the budget.
Everyone agrees that Minnesota's money problems is the biggest problem facing the governor-elect and the legislature. Agreement, however, has not been reached on a way to resolve the problem. One option would be to cut services in existing programs, but there are sacred cows. Arnie Carlson has already said there will be no cuts in programs aimed at senior citizens, children, and education.
Governor-elect Carlson is saying, education is sacred, kids are important, senior citizens, but everything else might be looked at. So he's probably starting out politically on the right track, but he's going to have his hands full, and we're giving him some time to think it over, to see what he wants to spend and how to raise the money.
Well, everybody says no tax increases, but I don't think that's going to be true. When we get done, we're going to see some tax increases, I'm afraid.
Balancing Minnesota's budget won't be an easy job. Lawmakers say it'll take 5 months of hard work. And they say things could get pretty noisy down in St. Paul, so stay tuned. Michelle Lee, News 6.
Late this morning, the governor and his family attended the Governor's Mass of Thanksgiving at St. Luke's Cathedral in St. Paul.
All the pressures of having people want something, I'm sure it's an enormous relief to have that placed off of your shoulders.
Afterward, in the church school auditorium, Perpich greeted friends, political allies, and citizens.
Governor, best wishes. Wonderful to see you and wish you really well.
Okay. It's an end of an era for us. We wish him good luck. We're sad to see him go.
The governor will say only that he plans to live in Eastern Europe, perhaps Vienna, and work to open up free markets. His frustration with the media unabated, Perpich was reluctant to talk with reporters.
I mean, we gave it all we had. I couldn't do any more than I did. I was working full time. And I think I even lost a little perspective in the whole thing. I think I got a little bit out of kill. All I did was work.
And then it was over to the governor's mansion, where people waited outside for up to 45 minutes for the first ever public showing of the entire residence.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. Sorry to see you leaving. Inside, the Perpiches posed for pictures. Renovation of the mansion has been a special project of Lola Perpich's, with more than $1 million spent since 1983. All of it donations.
It really is nice. It's huge.
Finally, despite a mixed response to the governor's record, his visitors all agreed that opening the mansion to the public today was a generous final gesture. Mary Stuckey, KARE 11 News.
Lester and his teammates are excited, anxious, and impatient. He, as well as all the other canine contenders here, have been diligently training for several months. Today, the moment of truth is just within their reach. They can smell it in the air. and they are ready to go.
And they're off and running.
The event features both 6 and 10 dog teams which run from Solon Springs to Amnicon Lake and back again for a total distance of 65 or 130 miles respectively. The mushers race these dogs against the clock to see who has the best combined time. It is an event which brings a bit of notoriety to this small Wisconsin town.
Well, this is a big event for Solon Springs. We have a lot of folks come down and spend 2 days and just have a lot of fun. It's not a big fundraiser for us. We'd like to make a little money on it, but we're really here just to have fun.
But more than fun, this is competition and serious business. A $3,000 purse is at stake and the opportunity to race with the likes of Kaizu Funatsu, an alum of the Bear Grease 130 and the Trans-Antarctica expedition.
These mushers say the appeal of this sport is twofold. It must be a definite love for competition, but more importantly, it must be a love for dogs.
Well, getting on a dog team is an experience like nothing else. It's quiet. They're making a lot of noise right now, but once you get out on the sled and you get out in the woods, it's quiet, it's fast, and seeing a big string of working dogs in front of you is just one of those beautiful things there is.
I'm a wife, a homemaker, and a mother, besides being a musher.
How did you get interested? I mean, it's just...
One of our neighbors has sled dogs, and he is also at this race, and he sort of helped me get into the sport.
While everyone here is not a world-class musher, they all bring to this race a certain intensity and a commitment to achieving personal best. So in the end, it matters not who wins or loses. The real prize in this event is teamwork and the mutual appreciation shared by these mushers and their dogs. Reporting from Solon Springs, Wisconsin, Dave Marshall, News 6.
Well, we just remodeled our house and it's a lot bigger than it was last year. So we had one indoors, one on the deck, one up on the balcony, and a couple in the backyard. And plus I was able to get my sister and nieces and brother-in-law's tree, and also some friends' tree.
Well, I've watched him ever since he was a baby, and I just loved all his shows. And I said, I came here, I saw it yesterday in the paper, and I said, I'm coming to see him. So I'm 78 now, and just a little girl inside of me wants to see him.
Each morning at about 6, Gino Palucci makes his way to the Luiginos plant on the Duluth waterfront to work with production crews.
Because I would go down there, and when I'd see that the pasta maybe wasn't cooked right, so after it went into the package, was frozen, heated in the microwave, that it didn't get mushy, and you'd tell them, and they would, until I took and I would knock the plastic tubs all over the floor. Then they started that, because I said, look, I put those signs up because I'm not running for office. You know, what it is, we want quality here.
Gino can afford to hire someone to run his latest food venture, but at 72 years old, he is as driven as ever to succeed, and he wants this plant in West Duluth to be his biggest success. Gino took that message to West Duluth business people last week with the promise that he would stick with Luiginos and not sell the way he sold Gino's Pizza.
I don't want that to happen again. and we're therefore have already laid the groundwork for going public. We won't be able to do it until about 92. We've got to show a steady progress there.
The promise of stability was clearly a major point in Gino's talk, and from the handshakes you could see it was well received in West Duluth. Everyone remembers that he left once before, taking his pizza operation to Ohio and corporate offices to Florida. The community then paid little attention to his reasons. Instead, they publicly attacked Gino. Forgotten were his contributions, some named for him like Palucci Hall and the Palucci Planetarium, and a long list of others like the airport and the depot and the library, on which his assistance was behind the scenes. The attacks hurt then, but Gino promised he would not forget the Northland. Clearly, his following through on that promise is bringing Gino great pleasure.
Then I intend to retire to the Republic Bank. As long as that other bank got a little commercial, I got to bring mine in. And I'm going to act like a banker, even though I don't like them.
There are currently 175 employees at the Louis Gino's plant. Many of them are union workers. Gino would like to see that expand to 500 within 2 years. He already has plans for a second plant. He's pushing the Italian foods and pasta in stores nationwide. He's been accepted by 10,000 already. He meets with Pizza Hut next month to try to develop a partnership to serve his pasta there. Is Gino back? You bet. As for Florida, he says he doesn't care if he ever goes back. Dave Jench for News 6 Sunday.
The Northland and winter, they seem to go together like spaghetti and meatballs. When the mercury drops, our excitement level rises, and we are anxious to tackle the great outdoors. 6 years ago, the city of Duluth recognized the Northland's fancy with the frosty season, and the Winter Sport Festival was born.
I think it's really something that eliminates a lot of cabin fever and really makes people feel good about living up here in the Northland, because it is really a wonderful place to be. You know, you might get 20 below every now and then, but you know, that's part of being here, and I think we all like to put on the tassel caps and the big mittens and go out and make a snowman or do whatever.
This festival features 60 events which run from January 6th to February 8th. It offers a number of activities from ski jumping to ice skating. The major events of the tour, of course, are the Bear Grease Sled Dog Race and the I-500 International Snowmobile Race. And the best part about this wintry extravaganza, it won't give your wallet a case of the frostbite.
The real beauty of it is nearly all the events are free or available at a very nominal charge. So the idea is to have people just get out of their homes in January. It really spans most of the month of January, extends into February. So over the next several weeks, they'll have a lot of chances to get out and really see what playing in the snow is all about.
Winter and the Northland, the two seem inseparable, a natural love affair of sorts. But of course, there are always those who will have their doubts. In Duluth, Dave Marshall, News 6.
Surprisingly enough, many young children are susceptible to hearing loss. But years ago, tests like these were not available, and children who suffered from hearing loss just seemed to slip through the cracks.
Before we got more sophisticated in diagnosing or being attuned to and then diagnosing ear diseases, children were pegged as being slow or mentally retarded. And in fact, their problem was not a problem with their brain, but it was with their ears. They couldn't hear, and so their learning was delayed.
But that's not the case anymore. Today, a simple test can determine if your child's hearing is normal. All children should have their hearing tested before starting school, and there are warning signs to be aware of as well. Any child that has relatives with a hearing loss is vulnerable, and frequent ear infections in young children can cause problems too.
Ear infections cause a hearing loss because of fluid that is found behind the eardrum, and it hampers the eardrum's ability to bounce.
Right now, today, we may go out on a medical run, which we'll be working with bandages or a stethoscope. We may go out on a fire alarm where we're going to be working with hose lines, we were working with chainsaws. We're going to be doing stuff that is different all the time.
The best part of the job to me is the release that the alarm brings from the there's a certain amount of tension that you have in between alarms.
241, assist with a small child locked inside of the room. 241.
The alarm goes off and you're actually sliding the pole and going to the rig. To me, that's the best part of the day. Well, we were called for a person or a child locked in a room.
We're going to take the doorknob right off of there so we can get in through there. And then you'll be able to lock this for later, and then they'll have to come in and fix that.
Okay.
Okay.
Best way was to break in via the doorknob.
You don't think about anything except work at hand.
Yes, you get some satisfaction out of knowing that you get a chance to help somebody. And not a lot of jobs you don't have the opportunity to make somebody's life a little bit easier. I was trying to think of something I would rather do, and I really can't think of anything I'd rather do than what I'm doing now.
What you ask of us is truly a sense of reverence. A reverence for the past, a reverence of God, a reverence of man.
Our next year is Ashley St. John Stevie, number 19.